Today we are talking about the big selection dilemma that is facing Chris Wilder after the start of this season. We have spent big money in terms of bringing in the lone superstar, as we are hoping, Jesurun Rak-Sakyi from Crystal Palace. But he's taken his time. He took his time joining United. He took his time getting himself up to match fitness and missed a couple of games at the start of the season. And while he was getting himself all set up, while he was getting himself ready to play, we had our own Sheffield-born starlet who was shining in this first team, who was showing us exactly what he can do and building on what had been a brilliant breakout season for him last year in the Premier League. I'm, of course, talking about Andre Brooks. Now, when we're looking to try and decide who's going to start on that right wing, is it going to be Rak-Sakyi? Is it going to be Andre Brooks? There's only one thing left to do, and that's fight it out. Ale, ale, ale. Ale, ale, ale. Ale, ale, ale. So let's start off by looking at Andre Brooks. And the 21-year-old has now made 34 appearances for the Blades across the last 3 seasons. But his big breakout, as referenced before, came last season in the Premier League and came especially once Chris Wilder had made his return to Bramall Lane. He made his first start for United against Liverpool at Bramall Lane under the lights. And that sent a huge message, not just to me, but to Brooks himself and to all of the other players, for how much Wilder trusts this young talent to break himself into this first team and to the ability that he has got. He, in fact, retained his place in the team and he went on to start the first 8 games of Wilder's return to Bramall Lane. Now, while he had a fantastic initial performance and a fantastic breakout, being one of the stars of United's team through those first 8 games, towards the end of that season, when he'd been in the team a little bit longer, his form did start to wane just a little bit. Now, whether that's because, let's face it, our entire team's form waned off. Nobody was really out there being able to perform week after week. It's such a difficult environment, particularly for a young player just trying to get his first start in professional football. But also we have to consider the impact of fitness. And did he, along with everybody else, start to just feel it in his legs a little bit? And maybe that took just a little bit away from his game as the Premier League season went on. Now, Brooks this season is a new man. And I thought last season when his form started to tail off, maybe he was just one of the players who was going to benefit from dropping down a level, from playing in the Championship and getting regular game time. And he has so proven that right. He started this season with an absolutely blistering performance against Preston. He was the constant danger man, always finding space down that right wing. He got the assist in the first half, setting up 𝗚𝗿𝗲𝗲𝗹's heavily deflected goal. But in the second half, he continued to have the left back on strings, and he was really, really unlucky to not get a second assist later on in that second half when he put one on an absolute plate for 𝗍𝗵𝗴, who just couldn't quite get the right contact it needed. And that saw Brooks have a fantastic breakout performance almost on that right wing. We'd seen him in the middle. We'd seen what he could do in the Premier League. But now we were seeing a real star being born on that wing, causing all kinds of problem for Championship defenders. Now, he has arguably been the standout of that sort of first portion of the season leading into the international break. It's his dribbling, his direct running, the way that he can have an eye for where he needs to play his pass and who he's trying to get in there. And he's very unlucky that his stats do only reflect that one assist, because he's been very, very good. He's been talented. He looks technically gifted, and his stats all bear that out. He's got really nice stats in terms of his expected assists, in terms of the chances created, but also in terms of his direct dribbling. And he does win more duels than he loses when up against his fullback. And they're all really positive signs for a young man just starting his journey in a red and white shirt. But he's not the only 21-year-old just starting his journey in a red and white shirt, because Jesurun Rak-Sakyi is the same age as Andre Brooks, but he actually has almost double the appearances of him at this stage in their development, albeit that while the majority of Brooks's games came in the Premier League last season playing central midfield, Rak-Sakyi's have all been out on that wing, but the majority in League One, where he played 49 games for Charlton last season in an unbelievably successful loan. He got 15 goals and 9 assists, and he has really got a track record for being one of the best wingers in League One, and he's now looking to take that game to the next level by performing in the Championship. Since joining United, as we referenced before, he's had to wait a little bit for his opportunity. He had a long, drawn-out saga in terms of when he was going to join United. He then had to deal with the fact that Brooks was performing at such a level that he didn't deserve to just get straight into that team, and he was only able to make cameo appearances against QPR and just the last 20 minutes away at Norwich. He did get his first start in the League Cup against Barnsley. And again, as I said about Brooks before, he was really unlucky not to get an assist in this one. A fantastic bit of footwork, getting him down the wing, pulling one across goal, only for Ryan Brewster to not be able to find the back of the net and leave him looking like a disappointing first sort of debut that he'd had for the Blades. But he then also retained his place due to Andre Brooks' injury. Rak-Sakyi retained his place. He played against Watford and he put in a very stellar performance in terms of creating chances, in terms of driving United forward and giving us an outball that we've just not had for so long in terms of the way his running is. I praised a lot of Brooks' stats before. I said that he was a standout in terms of his direct rubbing, in terms of his dribbling ability, but that's not all. Because when you actually look at it, Rak-Sakyi has better stats across the piece when we're going through those numbers. I know Rak-Sakyi has a very small sample size, but he has a 75% dribble success rate. That is ridiculous and puts him right at the top of the championship in terms of wingers so far this season. He's also right at the top of the stats in terms of his dual success rate, the amount of time that he's beating his fullback, but also defensively being able to win the ball back from his fullback high in the opposition half. He's also up there in terms of his touches in the box per 90. He's very active. He's always getting to dangerous positions, both to receive a pass, but also by beating his man to then try and look for a pass. Now, that's the one gap in his game, though, when you look at these stats. That's the one thing where Brooks really shines against Rak-Sakyi's numbers so far, is that Brooks has actually been able to create those chances. Rak-Sakyi's been in promising positions. He's dribbled really successfully, but he's not had the end product yet, whereas Brooks really shines ahead of him in terms of his expected assists, in terms of his chances created, in terms of his own personal XG created, in terms of how he's trying to fathom chances for himself. So, it's difficult. It's a really difficult decision. And it's one of those where there's no right answer, I don't think, for Chris Wilder here. And it's going to be a really close race. It's going to be fascinating to follow throughout the season. As these two young men develop, I think it's going to be so exciting to see what players they become throughout the rest of the year and going into next year as we come to the business end of the championship. It's a really difficult choice. And I promised you at the start that I would make one, that I would tell you which one I would go for. Now, my heart is screaming at me. It says you go for the Sheffield-born starlet, the lad who's come through the academy, the one who's got a future with Sheffield United, who we need to put all of our sort of commitment and development into to let him become the player that he wants to be. But then my head tells me something different. My head says, "Oh, you never change a winning team." No, my head doesn't say that. My dad says, "Oh, you never change a winning team." And that means that at the moment it would be Rak-Sakyi's shirt. But my head does also have its own thoughts. And that tells me that when we're looking at those stats, it says that that natural ability that Rak-Sakyi's got of beating his man, of winning his duels, of having successful dribbles, of getting into dangerous positions, that will pay out over the season. We also look at the experience and the fact that he has got so much more in terms of historic end product, in terms of goals, in terms of assists, even in terms of appearances, albeit accounting for the level. I think given where they're at currently, Rak-Sakyi is the sensible choice. He's the one that my head would scream at me to go for in terms of being the player who should be starting for Sheffield United week in, week out. But I just want to see him go at this. I can't wait to see this fight between them for the rest of the season. Who's going to earn the shirt? Who's going to be nipping at his heels to try and get himself back in the team? And ultimately, that can only be a good thing for Sheffield United, with two young, exciting attacking talents trying to drive us forward and trying to get us towards the promised land, which is, of course, back in the Premier League. But that is more than enough from me. We want to hear from you. Who do you think should be starting for Sheffield United right now? Are you an Andre Brooks man, or are you a Jesurun Rak-Sakyi man? Where do you want to see Wilder choose? Who do you want to see marauding down that wing? And most importantly, who do you want to see scoring goals and making sure that Sheffield United get all of the wins that they need? Thank you so much for bearing with me and for watching through this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments whether this worked for you. Let me know in the comments who you think should be starting. And most importantly, make sure you all go well and up the blades. Ole, ole, ole. Ole, ole, ole.